back, everyone. U.S. auto sales took a downturn. It posted their worst year in more than a decade. And supply chain problems put a dent in sales.
There are used cars you should never buy at auction. And right now, thousands of people are bidding on them today, with no idea what is hiding inside the VIN. Not the mileage, not the price, the VIN. That little string of numbers and letters carries a paper trail that dealers read before they ever raise a paddle. Recall history, defect codes, manufacturer warnings that have never been fixed, information that tells a trained eye exactly what that car is going to cost the person who wins the bid. And one of the most common vehicles rolling through auction lanes across this country right now, has a defect so dangerous it can start a fire while the car is parked. Engine off, keys inside, just sitting there. The dealer who bid against you already knew that. He read the VIN. He passed. You won. So before you sign anything, before you hand over a single dollar, you need to ask yourself one question. What is that VIN actually saying? And why is nobody at the auction telling you? Here is what nobody explains before you walk into an auction. The dealers already know what you are about to bid on. They ran the VIN before they got out of the car. They checked the recall database, pulled the title history, flagged the open defect campaigns, and made a decision based on actual information. Then they set their ceiling and stopped bidding at exactly the right number. You are the one raising your paddle based on how the car looks under the auction lights. That is not a fair fight, and the auction house is not going to make it one. A VIN is a 17-character vehicle identification number, and every single car on that lot has one. Most buyers treat it like a serial number, something you write down for insurance purposes, something you glance at and forget. What it actually is a complete paper trail sitting in plain sight. It tells you whether open recalls were ever repaired, or whether they are still sitting there, unfixed, waiting for the next owner to deal with. It tells you whether that car carries a salvage title, a flood damage flag, or a lemon law buyback designation, which means a manufacturer already paid someone to take it off their hands because the problems were that bad. It pulls up accident history, repair records, and in many cases, active manufacturer service bulletins flagging systemic failures across entire model lines. You can access this for free right now. The NHTSA website lets you search any VIN and see every open recall tied to that specific vehicle. Not the model in general. That exact car. 30 seconds. No account required. That is the tool dealers are using while you are walking the lot, deciding whether you like the color. Here is why this matters so much at auctions specifically. When that gavel comes down, the car is yours. As is. No return policy. No consumer protection window. No negotiating after the fact because the transmission started slipping on the drive home. Whatever that vehicle is hiding becomes your problem the instant you win the bid, and the auction house has no legal obligation to tell you anything they know about it. The 10 cars on this list are not random bad luck. They are vehicles with documented, verifiable problems that show up in the VIN history before the bidding even opens. Fire risks built into the battery system. Transmission failures engineered into the drivetrain. Recall campaigns that were issued years ago and never completed by prior owners. $8,000 in problems sitting one search away from being exposed. The dealers found them. That is why they stopped bidding. Now you will know exactly when to do the same thing. Let's start with the cars that do not just break down. Let's start with the ones that can catch fire. The Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid from 2018 through 2021 shows up at auction regularly. The price looks reasonable for a family minivan. The interior is spacious. The hybrid badge suggests efficiency. And none of that matters when you pull the VIN and see what Chrysler already knew. 67,000 of these vehicles were recalled because an electrical short could kill the engine while the car was moving. Not a warning light, not a rough idle. The engine stops. On the highway, in traffic, without warning. That is the first recall. Then there is the second one. Nearly 20,000 Pacifica hybrids were recalled because fires were breaking out near the high-voltage battery. Not after accidents, not after abuse, while the car was parked and charging in a garage. Chrysler told owners to stop charging the vehicle and park it away from any structure until the repair was completed. At auction, you have no charging history, no battery service records, no way of knowing how that high-voltage system was stored, treated, or neglected by the previous owner. But the VIN tells you whether that recall repair was ever completed. And if it was not, you just won a bid on a fire hazard sitting in your garage tonight. That is the Pacifica. Now meet the car sitting right next to it on the auction lot. The Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe from 2022 through 2024 carries 3 separate critical recalls on a single vehicle. The first pulled in over 194,000 plug-in hybrid SUVs for a fire risk that exists even when the ignition is off, engine off, car parked, still a fire risk. The second recall flagged nearly 990,000 Grand Cherokees for a steering system failure that could cause complete loss of steering control. The third recalled over 331,000 more because a suspension component could physically detach from the vehicle while moving and strike other cars on the road. 3 recalls. Any one of them is enough reason to stop bidding. Together, they tell you exactly why that Grand Cherokee is sitting in an auction lane instead of someone's driveway. Before we go further, if you want the complete breakdown of every vehicle that will drain your finances in 2026, download the free ebook called Avoid These 17 Cars in 2026. Depreciation data, reliability scores, the exact models mechanics see constantly. Link is in the description. Download it before you bid on anything. The price on both of these vehicles looks like an opportunity. The VIN says it is not. The sellers already knew. Now you do too. Fire risks get your attention. Transmission failures get your wallet. And the next 2 vehicles will drain it quietly, steadily, and completely before you ever see the bill coming. The 2017 Nissan Pathfinder looks like exactly the kind of vehicle that performs well at auction. Mid-size SUV, seating for 7, a reasonable mileage number on the odometer, and a price that feels like a genuine deal. What the price is actually reflecting is something the VIN confirms the moment you run it. Around 40,000 miles, the transmission on this Pathfinder starts sending signals. Hesitation when you accelerate, jerking between gears, a rough, unsettled feeling that gets worse every single week you ignore it. By the time most owners understand what they are actually dealing with, they are already looking at a full transmission replacement, over $3,500, on a car they bought at auction because the number seemed affordable. That is just the transmission. 4-wheel drive models carry an additional problem buried in the transfer case: leaks that cause vibrations, unusual noises, and eventual complete failure. Replacing or repairing a transfer case runs up to $3,000. 2 separate drivetrain failures on the same vehicle before most car loans are halfway paid off. Then there are the recalls. The 2017 Pathfinder was recalled twice for brake fluid leaking directly into the ABS pump. That is not a performance inconvenience. That is a documented fire risk sitting inside the braking system. Pull the VIN on any Pathfinder at auction and verify whether those recall repairs were actually completed before you raise a single finger to bid. A Pathfinder, sitting at 45,000 miles, looks like it has years of useful life still ahead of it. The transmission data says something very different. The auction price is already reflecting what the dealer in the next lane calculated before the bidding even opened. You are the one being asked to absorb the difference. Now take that exact same pattern and apply it to a vehicle that carried a name people genuinely got excited about. The 2021 Ford Bronco Sport rode a wave of nostalgia and aggressive marketing straight onto auction lots. where it now sits with problems that have nothing to do with off-road adventure and everything to do with the Ford Escape platform it was quietly built on. Transmission failure before 50,000 miles, jerky shifting, hesitation, and complete breakdowns on vehicles that were still practically new. Both engine options suffer from oil leaks, carbon buildup, and overheating. Some owners reported total engine failure before 40,000 miles, not worn out, just failed. The Bronco name made people bid with emotion. The reliability data demands you bid with math. At auction, those two things are almost never pointing in the same direction. Here is where the auction trap gets more expensive and more psychological. Because the next two vehicles do not just cost you money in repairs, they cost you money the moment the gavel falls, before you have driven a single mile. The 2018 Mercedes-Benz C-Class is one of the most recognizable badges in any auction lane. That three-pointed star does something specific to bidders. It makes them feel like they are getting away with something. A luxury vehicle at a used car price. An opportunity that other people missed. That feeling is exactly what drives the bid higher than it should go, on a car that the VIN will tell you has been recalled 19 separate times by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. 19. That is not a vehicle with a quirk. That is a vehicle with a pattern. Steering wheel vibrations on rough roads knock the alignment out quickly and repeatedly. Every realignment runs around $250, and the roads that cause it are not going anywhere. Panoramic sunroof seals deteriorate from sun exposure, and when they fail, the repair requires removing the entire sunroof assembly. Around $650 to fix something that was failing from the day it left the factory. A faulty charcoal canister in the fuel tank causes the gas pump to shut off repeatedly during refueling, and replacing it runs another $500. 3 separate maintenance problems, none of them dramatic, all of them relentless, all of them carrying Mercedes-certified labor rates that have nothing to do with what you paid at auction. Depreciation hit the moment you win that bid. The high interest rate if you financed it. The repair bills every time something breaks at luxury prices on a used car budget. That 3-layer combination does not care how good the deal looked in the auction lane. The 2018 Land Rover Range Rover takes everything expensive about European ownership and compounds it. Consumer Reports places it among the worst vehicles for reliability, and that is not our opinion. That is ownership data collected from the people who actually lived with this car. The air suspension begins failing before 60,000 miles. Compressor failure, airbag replacement, a rough and increasingly unstable ride that costs thousands to correct and often returns anyway. The infotainment system glitches constantly. Random screen blackouts, total system freezes, complete failures that require dealer-level diagnostics to even identify. Electrical problems compound over time on European architecture in ways that are expensive to trace and more expensive to fix. That Range Rover sitting at $22,000 in an auction lane used to sell for $85,000. That gap is not a deal, it is documentation. The market already ran the VIN. The market already decided. You are just the last one to find out why. American luxury carries a different kind of trap. It is not the European repair bill or the foreign parts markup. It is the illusion that a domestic badge on a premium vehicle means the ownership experience will be any less brutal on a used car budget. It will not. And the next two vehicles prove that with documentation. The 2024 BMW X5 plug-in hybrid arrives at auction carrying 2 recalls that together cover over 800,000 vehicles, and neither one is minor. The first involves the starter motor. Multiple failed start attempts cause an electrical overload that can overheat the system entirely. Over 100,000 vehicles were pulled back for this issue, and every single one of them requires a BMW certified technician to inspect and update before it is safe to operate. The second recall is larger and more serious. Over 720,000 vehicles, including specific X5 models, were flagged for a water pump short circuit caused by an improperly sealed electrical connector exposed to water. These are not software glitches. These are fundamental engineering failures on a vehicle that left the factory recently enough that buyers still expect it to be reliable. Then there is the battery and charging system. Owners report degradation faster than the manufacturer projected, charging failures, and charge times running well beyond what the spec sheet promised. The electric-only range shrinks, the efficiency disappears. The premium you paid at auction for a plug-in hybrid starts feeling like a penalty. Pull the VIN before that bidding opens. Confirm the starter recall is resolved. Confirm the water pump recall is resolved. If either one comes back open, the auction price is not a deal. It is a transfer of liability from the seller to you, and the repair costs will arrive on BMW letterhead. The 2020 Lincoln Aviator tells you everything you need to know before you even run the VIN. Just watch what happens to its resale value. Nobody wants them. That is not a casual observation. That is market data. And market data at auction translates directly into one question you need to answer before you bid. If the people who already own this vehicle are desperate to sell it, why would you be willing to buy it? The transmission fails early. Harsh shifting, delayed response, complete breakdowns well before 60,000 miles. Replacements are expensive and frequently temporary. The infotainment system freezes. The digital dashboard goes dark. Keyless entry and parking sensors fail randomly and cost significant money to diagnose and repair. The air suspension creates instability at highway speeds that owners describe as genuinely unsettling. Consumer reports scored it poorly. The ownership data confirmed it. The resale market rejected it. The auction lane is just the final destination for a vehicle that never should have left the lot at full price in the first place. Some failures announce themselves early. A rough idle, a warning light, a noise you cannot ignore. The two cars in this section are different. They wait. They let you drive comfortably for tens of thousands of miles, building your confidence in a vehicle that is quietly counting down to a repair bill you are not ready for. The 2016 Hyundai Sonata at auction looks like one of the safer bets on the lot. Korean reliability reputation, reasonable mileage, clean exterior, affordable price. Everything points toward a sensible purchase, right up until the odometer crosses 80,000 miles and the engine begins consuming oil at a rate that has nothing to do with normal wear. This is not slow degradation. This is an engine burning through oil between changes at a pace that demands constant monitoring and immediate top-ups. Owners who missed the signals faced accelerating internal damage. Some faced complete engine failure. A full engine replacement is not a repair you budget for on a car you bought at auction because the price seemed reasonable. The 6-speed automatic transmission compounds the problem. Slipping between gears. Harsh, unpredictable shifting. Sudden jerks that get worse with time and mileage. A full transmission replacement costs thousands, and it often follows the engine problems on the exact same timeline, hitting the owner with consecutive catastrophic repair bills on a vehicle they thought was built to last. Then the paint peels. Hood first, then the roof. Metal exposed to moisture and air begins rusting from the outside, while the engine is failing from the inside. The VIN check here is critical. Hyundai issued extended engine warranties on affected Sonata models. Pull that VIN and verify whether the warranty coverage is still active before the bidding opens, because if it has lapsed, every dollar of that engine repair lands entirely on you. The 2016 and 2017 Kia Optima shares more than a platform with the Sonata. It shares the Theta 2 engine at the center of one of the largest engine failure recalls in recent automotive history. Sudden power loss while driving. Engine knocking that builds and intensifies. Complete breakdowns that arrived for some owners before 100,000 miles, and for others far sooner. The transmission follows the same pattern. Jerky shifts, delayed acceleration, total failure requiring full replacement at significant cost. Electrical issues layer on top. Touchscreen malfunctions. Headlights shutting off randomly. Battery drain leaving drivers stranded without warning. Two cars. The same engine family. The same catastrophic failure pattern. the same countdown running underneath a clean exterior that auction lighting makes look completely fine. The VIN tells you exactly where that countdown stands. The question is whether you check it before the hammer falls or after the engine does. The last two cars on this list are the ones that fool the most people. Not because they look expensive, not because they carry a prestigious badge, because they look like a deal. A genuinely reasonable price on a vehicle that seems functional enough to justify the bid. That is the trap. And it is the most effective one in any auction lane because it targets the one emotion that overrides every warning sign. The feeling that you finally found the one worth buying. The 2020 Dodge Journey shows up at auction constantly. Low price, spacious interior, recognizable name. Families see it and do the math on seats and cargo space and monthly payments and convince themselves it works. What they are not calculating is the 2.4-liter four-cylinder engine producing power numbers that were outdated before this vehicle was even manufactured. Underpowered on city streets, genuinely struggling on highway on-ramps, burning fuel inefficiently the entire time. The transmission fails early, before 60,000 miles in many documented cases. The interior materials wear fast because Dodge cut costs at every opportunity, and it shows within months of ownership. The infotainment system is slow and unresponsive. Climate control malfunctions regularly. And underneath all of that, the crash test scores are below average with no modern driver assist features to compensate. At auction, the Journey is priced like a bargain. It performs like a liability with seats. The 2020 Fiat 500X delivers the same outcome at a smaller size. Fiat discontinued this vehicle after 2023 because demand collapsed. It shared its platform and components with the Jeep Renegade, which was also discontinued. When a manufacturer walks away from two related models simultaneously, the auction lot is exactly where those cars end up. Now you understand why the price looks so attractive and why the row of them never seems to get shorter. The 1.3-liter turbo engine is underpowered at highway speeds. The 9-speed automatic transmission is clunky, slow to respond, and unrefined in ways that daily driving makes impossible to ignore. Electrical issues appear repeatedly across owner reports. The interior feels cheap in ways that become more apparent every week. Road noise is excessive. Resale value is nearly non-existent, meaning the moment that hammer falls, you have already lost money you are never getting back. Before you raise your paddle on anything in that auction lane, 30 seconds on the NHTSA database is non-negotiable. Search the VIN. Check the open recalls. Look for lemon law buyback flags. If service records showing recall completion are not available, that car is not a deal. It is a problem with a price tag on it. The dealers who passed already knew. The VIN told them everything they needed to walk away. The auction lane is not the problem. The information gap is. And everything we have covered today comes down to that single truth sitting underneath all 10 of these vehicles. A Chrysler Pacifica hybrid with an unresolved fire recall parked in your garage tonight. A Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe with 3 separate critical campaigns still open on its VIN. A Nissan Pathfinder with a transmission already counting down to $3,500 at 40,000 miles. A Ford Bronco Sport with engine failure documented before the first owner finished paying it off. A Mercedes-Benz C-Class with 19 recalls attached to a badge that made the bidding go higher than the car ever deserved. A Range Rover whose air suspension was already failing before the resale market rejected it entirely. A BMW X5 with 2 open recall campaigns covering over 800,000 vehicles that the previous owner never resolved. A Lincoln Aviator that Consumer Reports scored poorly, the ownership data confirmed, and the resale market abandoned. A Hyundai Sonata with an engine consuming oil quietly while the warranty clock ran out. A Kia Optima carrying the same engine family, the same failure pattern, and the same countdown running underneath a clean exterior that auction lighting made look completely fine. 10 vehicles, 10 documented patterns, 10 VIN histories that told the whole story before the bidding ever opened. The dealers in that lane read them. That is why they stopped raising their paddles at exactly the right number. That is why some of them did not bid at all. The information was available. They simply did the 30-second search that most buyers never think to run. That is the only thing separating a deal from a disaster in any auction lane across this country. Not experience, not mechanical knowledge, not years of buying and selling vehicles. Just the VIN check that takes less time than reading the window sticker and costs absolutely nothing. The gavel does not care what the car costs you after it falls. The auction house does not care what you discover on the drive home. The seller has already moved on by the time you open the hood and start asking questions that should have been answered before you ever raised your hand. You now know which 10 cars to walk away from. You know what the VIN reveals and exactly where to look before the bidding opens. That is the same information the dealers walk in with every single morning. Download Avoid These 17 Cars in 2026 before you step foot in any dealership or auction house. Depreciation data, reliability scores, and the exact models mechanics see on their lifts every single week. Link is in the description. The auction gavel does not care what the car costs you after. Now you do.